What's up, ladies and gentlemen of the internet? How are you guys doing? In this video, we're gonna talk about 7 major differences between Garmin's triathlon-focused Forerunner 945 and Garmin's top-of-the-line outdoor watch, the Fenix 6. And while these watches are extremely similar, at the end of this video, I'm gonna talk about reasons and activities that you might wanna pick up one versus the other. Now, Garmin is not sponsoring this video, and they actually didn't provide these watches to me for the purpose of this review. I actually got both of these watches from the Dialed Cycling Lab, and I'll leave a link below in the description of this video where you can actually check that out. And I'll be covering these watches from the perspective of kind of a long distance triathlete, you know, those Ironman distances and things like that, because I tend to focus on swimming, biking, and running. And this video is not supposed to be an exhaustive review of both of these watches. The idea is just to give you an idea of the differences between these two watches and why you might choose one over the other. And there's actually a lot of similarity between these two devices. Both watches have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, Ant+. Both watches have a very large variety of different activity types that they can track, and both watches do an excellent job of tracking swimming, biking, and running, as well as triathlon, so that captures your T1 and T2. And they both have enough battery life to cover an Ironman distance event. Both watches have this new Garmin Pay feature, which is Garmin's NFC communication so that you can actually pay with your watch. And they both have Garmin Music, so you can store your music locally on these watch devices. They both have color screens and mapping, and both devices have Garmin's new Pulse Ox and wrist-based heart rate monitoring. So basically, any feature that the Garmin 945 has, the Fenix will also have. But there are some slight differences, and one difference is the price. The price of the 945 normally costs about $600, and the Fenix 6 typically costs $100 more than that. There is a Sapphire edition of the Fenix 6 watch, and that costs yet another $100 more. And so the watch that I'll be using for this review will be that Sapphire edition. However, there does seem to always be some sort of sale or deals going on. And as of the time of recording this video, there's a Father's Day deal for both watches. It's $150 off the Fenix or $50 off the 945, which is interesting because it kind of makes these watches cost a similar amount, or bring down the difference between the Sapphire edition and this Garmin 945. So let's talk about some of those differences. For one, the screen on the Fenix 6 is significantly bigger, which means bigger fonts, bigger icons. The application on the watch itself is larger, but it's not necessarily more legible, especially on the Sapphire edition of the screen. The Sapphire is significantly more durable, but the visibility isn't quite as good as Gorilla Glass. And the Gorilla Glass is on the Garmin 945, as well as a lot of the versions of the Fenix 6. And it just handles reflections a lot better and tends to make the screen on the watch just look a lot sharper. The Fenix 6 comes in 3 different screen size varieties. They have the Fenix 6, which is a 1.4 inch display, and it's got a 280 by 280 pixel resolution. So that's significantly larger than the 945. They also have the Fenix 6 size, which is the one that I'll be showing here, which is 1.3 inch, and it has a 260 by 260 pixel resolution. They also have this smaller version, and I think it's geared towards, you know, smaller wrists, potentially women, but also people like me that just have tiny wrists. And that's a 1.2 inch display, and that's 240 by 240 pixel resolution. So this smaller Fenix watch has the exact screen dimensions as the Forerunner 945. However, the Fenix watches tend to have displays that go all the way edge to edge, and the 945 has this awkward black bezel that kind of goes around the inside of the display. And so the next major difference between these two watches is their weight. The Fenix has those 3 different varieties. The smaller one comes in at 61 grams. The medium watch, the normal Fenix, comes in at 83 grams, and then that Fenix X comes in at 93 grams. And that Fenix Sapphire edition has a titanium housing, which actually subtracts 10 grams. And so the watches that I'm wearing here are both 73 grams for the Fenix and 50 grams for the Garmin 945. So that's actually a significant amount of weight. I think that's like 30% difference. But you know, you may not notice 23 grams when you're wearing it on a run or even carrying it for a distance like the Ironman. And if I'm honest with you guys, I wore both of these recently while running, and both of these watches felt fine. I really didn't notice that extra weight of the Fenix 6. The Garmin 945 does feel like a slimmer watch, and it definitely is lighter, but it's not something that would stop me from using either watch. And let me just talk about those dimensions real quick. The Fenix 6S is 42 by 42 and has a depth of 13.8 millimeters. The watch that I'm looking at here, the Fenix Sapphire, is 47 by 47 and has a 14.7 millimeter thickness. And that big Fenix X has 51 by 51 and the depth is 14.9 millimeters. So to put that in comparison with the Garmin 945, that watch is also 47 by 47 millimeters, but the depth is 13.7 millimeters, so 1 millimeter less. And it just seems to have a much slimmer profile than the Fenix watches. And the next big differentiator between these two watches is actually the material that the watch housing is made of. The Garmin Fenix 6 has a stainless steel bezel, while the Garmin 945 uses a plastic bezel. And if you do choose that Fenix 6 Sapphire edition, the bezel is actually made of titanium, which is pretty cool. So between that titanium bezel and the sapphire screen, that watch is extremely durable. They're saying that sapphire is the 3rd most durable material on the planet, so you're really not gonna scratch that watch unless you come across it with a diamond or something like that. Whereas the other editions of the Fenix using that Gorilla Glass, as well as the Garmin 945, you may wanna invest in a screen protector. And I'll leave links below in the description of this video if you guys wanna check that out. And if I'm being picky about the materials, I do have to say that I did like the buttons on the Fenix 6 a little bit more than I like the buttons on the 945. I know it's something small, but it is a spot on the watch that you tend to touch, and it's just something that I noticed. Another noticeable difference between these two watches is the user interface of the watch. When you're actually in the applications and doing an activity, you won't notice much difference at all between the watches. However, the actual operating system of the watch when you're outside of an activity is slightly different. For example, the widgets on the Forerunner, they take up a full screen and you can still scroll between these different screens to see different widgets. But the Garmin Fenix 6 actually has these lists of widgets, which I find a lot nicer. And one of the new beta features only available on the Fenix 6 is actually showing within this widgets list your sleep tracking metrics. And the Garmin 945 might get this within a year or so, but I think the Fenix 6 is gonna get some of these new features faster. And one of those features is the Fenix 6 Power Manager. You can really dial in the power management of this particular watch. And as of the time of recording this video, that's not an option on the 945. But the Power Manager allows you to control things like the backlight, smartphone connection, optical heart rate. You can turn all of those things on or off. And the power modes allow you to customize what you want to have draw power while you're doing specific activities. And the watch also has what they call battery saver mode, which is kind of like what you might have on your smartphone. And it just kind of turns everything off and it only updates the watch face once per minute. And you can do something crazy like go for 40 something days when you have your watch in this mode. I don't know because I didn't actually have that much time to try it. And lastly, both watches have color mapping, but but it seems to me that the Fenix 6 just provides a little bit more detail within its maps. And you can upload maps to either of these devices, but the Fenix 6 does come preloaded with quite a few different map types. So if you're into skiing or something like that, you may prefer to have some of these detailed preloaded Fenix 6 maps, or you might have to upload them if you have the Garmin 945. Other people besides skiers that might want to gravitate towards the Fenix would be people that do like ultra marathoning. Those races go very long, some of them over 24 hours, and having those additional battery resources really makes a lot of sense. Definitely people that are doing multi-day expeditions, they might prefer having that extra battery life as well as anyone that just really prefers to have the nicer housing on the watch, or prefers the extra durability of having that sapphire screen. So as long as you're not super particular about the weight of your watch, I think the Fenix 6 is an excellent option. But I'm curious what you guys think. Is there a watch that you're gravitating more towards because of features or weight or something like that? Let me know, drop below in the comments and tell me what you think. But for me personally, as you can see, I think I prefer the Garmin 945. So if you watch more of these videos, this is probably the watch that you'll most often see me wearing, but I do plan on testing a lot more watches in the near future. So if you're into this sort of thing, and that would be swimming, biking, or running, be sure to subscribe. There's also a little switch down there for notifications, and you're gonna wanna set that to all so you'll be able to know whenever I post new videos, which is typically about once per week. And with that, thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video, and we will see you guys on the next one.